All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Eric with Alamo City Agenda. We are here with a Texas House of Representative candidate 122, Angi. Um, I need you need to tell me the name because I'm going to mess it up.
Aramburu.
Aramburu.
Yes, it doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. I guess.
It could. So today is early voting.
It is.
We've all been dreaming about this. It's
some of us more than others.
Right. Were you out putting some signs out in the early morning at the libraries and all that stuff?
Well, I'm part of the Bexar County Democrats coordinated campaign, so thankfully they were taking care of that for us.
Okay.
So I was at the office yesterday, putting my signs at the in the right piles to go there. So
gotcha.
Thankfully I did not have to do that this time.
How many? Is this your first time running or no?
It is. I am a first-time candidate.
Okay. So tell us about the stress levels of running the campaign. What got you to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and run?
Well, it's something I've thought about for a while. Public service has always been important. I've served on the PTA for 6 years. I'm on the Mayor's Fitness Council, which our task is to promote health and wellness throughout the city. My small business is a fitness company, and so I like to combine my career with service. In the past, I was a nonprofit manager. So that's what I did in my previous life before my fitness company and before my kids. My career took a little shift. So public service has always been important. I've always tried to incorporate that into my life. And so this is really an extension of that. Mm-hmm. What prompted me to do it now in this moment is to be honest, it was frustration. The last few years were very frustrating for me. I felt like a small minority of voices were controlling what was happening in our state government. And I didn't feel represented. I didn't feel like my neighbors, my family were being represented. And so I thought it was a good time to jump in and try and help make some positive change on my own.
Okay.
Sorry. I should clarify. When I say on my own, it is not on my
own. When you're in
a campaign, it is certainly, thankfully, not on your own. Amazing people have come out of the woodwork to help at all levels, and it has really been surprising in a great way. And overall, it has been just a tremendous life experience. Yeah. It's been a good growth experience, and we're still in it. I'm still learning every day.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. So, especially first time running, it's like, whoa, what's going on? Now, what are some things that you are not liking about the campaign?
Online trolls.
Oh yeah.
You're going to get that no matter what. I don't know. It takes up a lot of time. And so as a working mom of 3, it is hard to balance because this has definitely become a full-time gig in the last few months. And I feel like it needs to be. If you're serious about it, you have to show up. You have to be willing to answer questions, talk to people, let them know who you are, what you want to do. And so I've been trying to do that as much as possible. So, trying to manage that time has been difficult.
And I think it's important that anybody running for political office should be accessible to the public. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have called and they're like, who are you with? I'm like, I'm independent. It shouldn't really matter because you should be, just because it's not the news station or whatever, it shouldn't matter. And that's something that some people, unfortunately, it's like, they're like, oh, no, it's okay. It's sad, and I ran into that situation a lot too, where big media companies they didn't even like, you're not worth it in a sense. It's like, why not? So that's the only reason why I started this podcast is because I wanted to be able to have everyone on, invite everyone on, no matter what your bankroll is, as far as with campaign contributions, which I think it's pretty outrageous. That so much spending is going on. I don't care what party you're in. There's so much spending that's going on that a lot of the money could be redirected towards the communities. So I don't know how you feel about campaign spending, and what you would like to see with campaign spending maybe Would you like to see a change in that, or?
Of course. Yeah. I feel like it's a completely unfair system right now. People are buying campaigns. They're buying legislation. My opponent is funded by partly funded by two billionaires, the West Texas guys, Tim Dunn, and I can't remember the other guy, but there's a documentary about it on CNN called Deep in the Pockets of Texas. And they're very extreme right wing, and they've funded all of these PACs, and they are funding all of these extreme candidates across the state, and they're winning because they are putting so much money into it. And someone like me, I can't afford to loan myself $1 million, but other people in my race have. My opponent, I think, loaned himself $500,000.
Yeah.
It's so much money. And I think it needs to be about ideas and not about money, and then you have all of this dark money coming in, and because they ruled that spending on campaigns is a First Amendment right. So all of these corporations are backing these candidates, and basically they're buying the legislation that they want. Right. It's not representing the majority of citizens, and we are not benefiting from that.
Yeah. Well, and to be honest with you, it's not just the Republican Party; it's the Democrat Party as well.
It is.
And that's the thing that's so sad, that we have a lot of spending, and it's just going both ways, and it's just like, why? We're over here as far as like the general public, like we just want some people to just be in it for the right purposes. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So what would you like to see change from that point? Like what do you think that you would like to see changed in general, just spread out?
In terms of campaign finance, I think there should be caps on donations. Right now in Texas for state races, there are no limits on the contributions. To make it fair, I think there should be limits on those contributions. I don't think corporations should be able to fund campaigns. I think it should be more transparent where the money is coming from.
Yeah. Do you have any PACs or super PACs donating to you at all?
No. Well, the American Federation of Teachers, there, it's but no, I have not accepted any large checks from any PACs. No.
And that's the thing too is because I know, I'm pretty sure you're following the county judge race. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of talk about money coming from different places, but all the candidates can reject those campaigns donations. So if you really choose to not get the heat for some of these things, you can reject them. If you accept them, then you accept them.
Absolutely. If you accept that money, you deposit it into your account, you are responsible. Right. But what's happening is that there are organizations that can fund ads for you, against you, that cannot coordinate with you, and you have no say over that. And so I think in the judges race, I think that's something that happened where these ads were run, but I don't think it was a coordinated effort with either. Yeah,
it's a slippery slope. It is. So what are some things that first of all, tell people where the boundaries are for 122.
So it shifted west this year with redistricting. So we're now just west of 281, mostly north of 1604, all the way out to Helotes, up to Fair Oaks Ranch. With the exception, it does dip down into Chavano Park, Hill Country Village, and Hollywood Park.
Okay. And so what are you hearing a lot from, because be honest with you, that's a really Republican area, right? So what are you hearing from a lot of the people that you guys are block walking in?
So I've been focused on talking to independents, moderate Republicans. I'm not just focused on Democrats. And what I've heard is people have had enough. They've had enough of all of the divisiveness at the state level, and that prevents us from getting anything done. I feel like the two parties have become, on the extreme, so polarized, they've villainized one another. And then it's impossible. Once you villainize someone, you can't come to an agreement with them. And so I think what we need to do is elect people, one that can get along with others, and particularly get along with others that don't agree with them at the get-go, be willing to have those hard conversations.
Yeah.
And this is what I've been trying to do with the doors. I've knocked on plenty of doors where they say, well, I'm a Republican. And I say, that's great. Let's have a conversation. Let's see.
That's why I don't even tell them they're like, what party? I'm like, does it matter? How about you hear what I have to say first? Right?
Exactly. I never say I'm the Democratic candidate. I say I'm a candidate for, and then if they care, they ask, and I'm happy to tell them. But yeah, I don't want them to judge me initially based on that. I want them to hear what I have to say, because what I found is we often agree on the issues. One guy was staunchly Republican, and he told me his issues, and we talked about the border, and we talked about guns, and we ended up fist bumping, because down deep, we have the same values, we want the same things, and it's just being willing to have those hard conversations.
Right. Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't want to do, and that's unfortunate. And if you're not willing to do that, then why even be in office to begin with? Why even try?
Agreed.
Jackie says, why aren't you discussing corruption? Let's talk about corruption. So,
I'm not sure corruption in terms of what, but I believe, we should have as much transparency as possible, particularly when it comes to elections, when it comes to government. When it comes to our tax dollars, I believe there needs to be full transparency. It's our money, and there needs to be oversight of that money. And corruption is a big topic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
If you give me something specific to address, I will. But for sure. Overall, I think transparency and oversight is important in all realms.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing that I think you were talking about, the dark money and all these PACs and who's funding the PACs, the super PACs. And there's just a lot of gray area that people are just tired of. They don't want their taxes to go up. That's the big one. So what do you kind of propose, since property taxes come from the state legislature? What's something that you would like to propose?
Property taxes are high. They are too high. And I have a couple of ideas of ways that we can get them back under control. And one is through fully funding public education. Right now, the state, when all of this started, it was an agreement between the state paying 50% and property taxes paying 50%. But what's happened is property taxes have gone up. And so the state allows those property taxes to supplant their portion. So right now, the state is only contributing about 30% of public education, and the rest is on the backs of property taxpayers. So we need to get that back in balance, where the state is providing at least 50% of that funding, so we can stop relying so heavily on property taxes. And then the local districts don't have to keep raising their rates.
Yeah.
Another thing we can do is expand Medicaid. Right now, the federal government is offering us our money back, the taxes we have paid into the federal government, getting, I think it's around $15 billion per year that we could get back in the form of Medicaid dollars. We have over 5 million uninsured Texans. So what that would do is it would insure more people, provide care that they need, make sure rural hospitals can stay open, that rural communities have care. But if you look at your property tax bill, and I'm coming back to property taxes, about 10%, I believe, goes into the hospital system, and that pays for the uninsured. So if we can get those Medicaid dollars, which would boost our economy by $15 million, and give insurance to these people that need it, we wouldn't have to pay so much into the hospital system through our property taxes.
But the hospital portion from the property taxes only goes to specific UT Health Science Center, correct?
It does, but that's where a lot of the uninsured go to get care.
Yeah, but I also think that a lot of them don't even know that that's even a possibility, though. Do you? You think?
I think they get sent there, right? I mean, if they show up somewhere where they don't have insurance, I think they are directed to those locations to get care.
Well, see, I feel like that's not something that's widely put out there for people. It's just like you show up and they're like, "Oh, sorry, we can't help you," because I've seen that, where they show up and they're like, "Sorry, we can't help you,"
which is horrible, right? And then, people in need, people with healthcare needs, urgent healthcare
I just had an
needs.
accident, and what do I do? Like, they just can't go to any random place. So it's frustrating for people that don't even know. But also, the thing with the property taxes is how come elected officials or people that are in office are not extending education on how to fight their property taxes.
I don't know. I don't think we should have to fight our property taxes every year. I mean, they send you an outrageous bill, and then you have to sign up for a hearing and go through a hearing, and it's ridiculous, and it's burdensome on homeowners who are already busy working and doing all kinds of other things. So the system itself is broken, I would say,
right.
in great need of assistance. It needs to be fair from the get-go, so it's not on us to be fighting it every single year.
Right.
And that goes back to, looking at how assessments are done, as particularly when home prices are going through the roof as they did the last few years. Yeah. It just needs to be, the whole system needs to be looked at and reevaluated to make it more fair.
Yeah. Like right now, I don't see it changing anytime soon. Right. So but nobody's doing these things. So we're educating people, the public, hey, go do this, especially in lower income neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. They don't even know they could do this. So their homes are being jacked up. Their prices are being jacked up. There's people that are paying more than people on the north side that are on the south side. Yeah. And it's not fair.
Yeah, well, even like homestead exemptions, not everyone knows to apply for that.
If you even know what homestead exemption means and how even that works.
I know,
I asked them,
right?
they're like, oh, well, you do this and this. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. They don't even know how to explain it to you because it's so complicated. And the way they go around it is by increasing the price of your home so it goes past that percentage amount of homesteads. So it doesn't really do anything, but that's the problem that I'm seeing is that a lot of people, a lot of especially elected officials, if they can't get something done to begin with, legislation wise, they're not going back into the community and saying, look, I'm going to hold a class in my district to show you how to fight property taxes. That way, all as a community in our area can lower our property taxes down. Yes, this is burdensome. Yes. But I will tell you personally, it takes me about a full 30 minutes from start to finish to be able to do all the from finalization. It takes about 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's from your initial protest and so on and so forth, because it takes like 5 minutes to do the initial protest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's possible.
But it's a process and it's hard to do. And you get all of these mailers from attorneys that say, pay me to help you do this. When actually you can do it yourself pretty easily. Right. But you're right. Most people don't know that. And I think the onus is on the public leaders to help their residents through these things and teach them how to do it. And I'm sure there are organizations out there, but it's hard to reach everyone. And if you don't know who to reach out to learn, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So. Let's see. Okay, so what are some things that you would like to see? What are some problem areas not problem areas, but problems in your district that you think that needs to be accomplished? Like this, some of the things that aren't being talked about. In our district in particular, water. Water is a huge issue. There is out on the far west side, there's a new development of 2,900 homes, and they're within the SAWS provider area, so they can get water, but not within the wastewater area. And so what they've proposed, there were a couple of different ways they could have handled it. They've decided to build their own wastewater treatment facility. And what they have proposed is dumping 1 million gallons of treated wastewater into the local creek, which goes directly, it meets up with, I think, 2 other little creeks and goes directly into our aquifer. Was that the one that the developer was asking? Was that the one where the developer was asking to do that? Yes. Oh. Yes. And the problem is there is no legislation on the books to prevent that.
It's been proposed. It's never come to a vote. But if we don't start proactively creating legislation that takes care of our water supply, we're going to be in big trouble. You know, we could be another Flint very easily, or just have no water. I mean, as we've seen, drought is an issue now, and it's going to continue to be a big issue.
Yeah.
We need to ramp up our infrastructure. Our water infrastructure is, some of it's very old. We need to fix it. We need to be proactive about protecting our water supply.
That's crazy. Well, is that the Hollywood area, the Chavano and all that?
No, it's out like Helotes.
Oh, okay.
I think it's between Helotes and Bernie.
Okay. So what have been some positive feedbacks that you've gotten from other sides of the aisle, I guess, of people that have thought different than you? What are some positive ones that you have?
That I am willing to listen, I would say, is positive feedback. Is that what you're asking for? Positive feedback. Yeah, when I go to the door and I meet with people that at first sight we're not on the same side, you know, I spend time having conversations with them, and I think they've appreciated that. And I think that's what we need to do at the State House. You know, I mean, my thought is, if I were to introduce legislation, the first thing I would do is find someone across the aisle to write it with me, because one, I think it has better chance of getting through if it's a bipartisan bill, and that way, you know, more people are being represented. Because right now, when you come in with an extreme agenda, it's truly a minority of people that you're representing, and that's not what you're there to do. And you're not only there to represent your own ideas, your own agenda, you're there to listen and try and help as many people as possible. And that's what I hope to do.
So what have been some things that you feel has been some things that you've heard that you're like, that's I never would have thought of that? Have there been any situations like that from the public itself?
I'm sure there have been. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the border and things we can do at the border. And
I guess tell us about that, because the border is a very messy situation, you know.
It is. It's very messy, and truly it's a federal issue, and the federal government should be doing more. Our state leaders could be working with the federal government, or at least attempting to, instead of just saying you're not doing anything. Like, let's work together to fix it. But it's a complicated situation. We need more processing, better processing. We need a more efficient, faster asylum system. We do need to make sure people are coming across legally, you know. And in some places, parts of a wall, you know, a wall might make sense along the whole thing. No way. I think, you know, we're using ancient techniques for this. You know, you build a wall, they build a tunnel or a ladder, you know. So, I mean, right now we have technology, we have drones, we have all of these different security measures that can instantly alert the Border Patrol to smuggling or whatever's going on. And I think we need to look at those types of solutions.
Do you think decriminalizing a lot of drugs, not a lot of drugs, but decriminalizing drugs, let's say marijuana, for the most part, would decrease the amount of trafficking happening in this
Absolutely. They're not just sending, I know a lot of talk about fentanyl and other things, but marijuana, I think, is a pretty big import from across the border as well. And there's a lot of reasons for decriminalizing and legalizing marijuana. One is we can tax it and make a whole lot of money, and, you know, which would go into help boost our economy. Two, we could decriminalize it and stop putting people in jail for low-level offenses. It can be used as an alternative to addictive opioids and other prescription drugs that are pushed on us and are very, very expensive and have a lot of bad side effects. So I think there's a lot of reasons.
Because I think you came out as saying that you were for decriminalizing
legalizing marijuana.
Yeah. And is there anything that we can do from the state level to get some of those people out of prison that should not be there?
Yeah, I mean, on the federal level, I think Biden just said he was going to release federal prisoners of low-level drug possession charges, or specifically marijuana charges. That can be done at the state level too. Abbott said he will not do it. But if you think about it, I mean, it costs a lot of money to keep people in prison, and if they're holding some marijuana and they're in prison for that, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Well,
especially if they're not, of course, you don't let out violent offenders. You don't, it would be non-violent, low-level possession offenders.
Yeah. And let's be honest, with a lot of these situations, Biden and Vice President Harris did pass a lot of bills that criminalized a lot of them, it's are they trying to take a step back from that? Because there's a lot of people that got put in jail for those situations. And, I don't know if maybe they see that it's the wrong situation, or maybe they're being pressured to go back. But, a lot of these people were put into jail because of those situations, those bills that they've.
Back in the 90s.
In the day,
And I mean, I don't suppose to know what they're thinking or why they're doing it, but an assumption is that they've realized that it went too far. It criminalized too many people. And when you look at it, white people and minorities use marijuana at the same rates, but minorities are imprisoned at a far higher rate than white people. It's just, that is the truth. That's the case. And I mean, alcohol is legal, and we tax it, we control it. There's no reason we can't do that to a plant, which, and I honestly don't know anyone who's been addicted to marijuana. I've never heard of it. Maybe it's happened, probably. But I feel like it's less dangerous than alcohol in a lot of ways. And if we can manage it in a similar way, I don't see why we wouldn't.
Or just get the government out of it.
Or get the government out of it altogether, and and maybe it's not something that the state legislates. Let's put it on the ballot and let the people decide. I think that might be the most fair way to handle it.
Right. Now, speaking about ballot, would you like to see a sort of different type of voting method, like approval voting in the state of Texas?
Ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice, yeah. Now, keep in mind, Austin passed ranked choice voting last year.
Okay.
They can't use it.
Because of the state.
It's illegal, in the state of Texas. So if you were to pass approval voting, that's actually allowed in the state legislature, which just makes no sense to me. But Austin passed ranked choice voting. They want changes, but they can't even use it. So is this something you would like to look into, maybe try to work with some other politicians to try to bring that possible change?
It is certainly something I would like to look into. I think we need to make voting easier for everyone who can legally do so. There shouldn't be so many barriers in place, particularly with mail-in voting. And then when we choose our legislators, there shouldn't be any games involved. I know there's a push right now to bring the Electoral College to state politics. I mean, talk about going backward. The great thing about democracy is majority rules. The popular vote should rule, and we need to make sure that's happening. And that it's not all of these little strategic games that people like to play.
It's difficult, and I know I've seen a lot of difficulties with other candidates, third party candidates. And it's rough for them because they can't just go up there because, Democrats and Republicans get first sight of the public because of the primaries, which third parties don't. But then they also have to pay the fee, which it doesn't benefit them at all because they don't get to be part of the primaries. So it's a lose-lose situation, Well,
and I think the problem is there's usually only one other candidate. If we had more parties involved, like other countries do, it might make it a little more fair. But it is tough. It is tough for the independent candidates.
Yeah, definitely. So just I know you got a lot of stuff to do, but first, real quick, guys, early voting is today. Are you going to be anywhere so people can meet you or anything?
I have kid activities today, but tomorrow I'll be out. I'll probably be at Brook Hollow and Parman Library tomorrow.
Okay. And what are some things that you want people to know about you that maybe they haven't heard about you yet?
I think the most important thing is that as a legislator, my goal is to show up every day, to have my door open and to listen from a place of mutual respect to all ideas. I think I don't ever want to make a decision without hearing all sides. And I'm not sure that's something you're going to hear from a lot of other candidates. But it's true. That's how I operate in life, and that's how I'll operate as a legislator. And I'm running truly because I care about the community, and I want to make positive change. I want to do good things, and I want to represent what's best for the majority of Texans, and particularly our district.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's something that we don't hear too much. Because that's the thing, though, is that a lot of people have to tiptoe between the party lines, making sure they're going across the party line, or not going across, but going with the party lines. And let's face it, there's a lot of times where the party wants you to do something. And, we saw that with District 118. Leo Pacheco, he left. He got a lot of flack for voting across the aisle, and it's tough because if you don't follow some of the party guidelines, you get primaried. And a lot of people don't know that, but it is true. And you have to play like this balancing game. Like
there's pressure to fall in line, and there's a wide array of views in every party, and people tend to pay more attention to the extreme views in either party. And so that's why I don't lead with I'm a Democrat, although those are the values that I adhere to and I believe in most. I don't want to defund the police. I don't want to take away everybody's gun. I don't want to do all of these things that are associated with the extreme end of being a Democrat. And I want to be heard for my ideas and what I believe. And it's tough. And what I say about elections, you're not marrying the person you're voting for, right? It's more like somebody gave me a good analogy. It's you're on a bus and you're trying to take the bus to get closest to your destination. Rarely are you going to make it all the way there, or directly there, but there's a lot of different issues at stake in every election, and there's single issue voters. I get it. But I would say vote for your own self-interest, because so many people vote against that. The single issue voters. It's frustrating. But vote in your own self-interest and what matters to you. If you're retired, vote for someone that's going to give you a COLA. If you are a teacher, vote for someone that's going to help fund the schools. If you're a rural doctor, vote for someone who will help provide funding for healthcare in rural areas.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too, is a lot of people don't realize is that anybody could be in these parties, so to say, right? That doesn't mean that they hold those values 100%. So and there's been a clear situation like that in New York. There was a transgender male that was a transgender male or female. I can't remember what it was, but he went and ran in the Republican Party for a sheriff or something like that, sheriff office, and even on the campaign page, it was like, I'm a transgender, and people just still voted for him because of the fact that he was a Republican. Not also saying that he hated the police or something like that, like just some crazy thing that
they just put the R next to your name, and no matter what, they'll vote for you.
And that's and he was doing it to prove a point. He knew what he was doing. But that's the thing, is a lot of people don't see these things. They don't read into it just because, it's all red, it's all blue, or all gold, or all green. You have to look at these people. Really look into it, deep dive, because these people are going to make an impact in your life. whether you think so or not just national elections, but the local elections.
Oh, it's more so at the local level.
Yeah.
I mean, local level politics affects your everyday life more than Biden will. You know, I mean, it truly does. And so at the local level, it's so important to choose people over party.
Right.
And I've personally done that. I've voted for Republicans before when I felt like they were the better candidate. And, you know, in my district, they say, oh, it's such a red district. And, but what I've found is it's a very independent-minded district. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Lyle Larson has held this seat for 12 years. He was very moderate. He was very reasonable. Yeah. You know,
he believed in term limits. He
believed in term limits, and he adhered to it. And I respect that a lot.
Yeah.
But you truly have to look at who is running, not just the letter next to their name, because you know, there's a primary in most cases where people can elect, but there's really no other criteria before someone runs. So I think we've seen the result of that.
Do you have the money? That's the criteria. Is do you have the money to pay the fee?
Well, and to do the job. This job pays $7,000 a year. So that is very limiting. And who can actually run and still live doing this job, you know, or be a full-time legislator and not just a part-time legislator.
The fee is like 15% of your paycheck. $750
yes,
to run
it is
for
not
office.
Cheap. It's not cheap.
You know, and that's the problem is like it's kind of already set up for people who have money. You know, or you can fundraise it, but that's still a lot of money just to put your head in there. It's not really open for the regular person.
It's not.
So
and I'm fortunate. I have my own business. It's flexible, and I'm fortunate to be married to someone who makes more money than I do. You know, but you shouldn't have to be in that position because then that limits the voices who are able to represent our community, and I don't think that's a good thing.
No. How can people get a hold of you? Help, you know, especially during the early voting. How can people do?
So you could. My website is Angi for Texas, ANGI for Texas. I get mistaken a lot for Angie's List. I cannot help with home repairs. I am no good at home repairs. I'm sorry, but it's Angi for Texas. I'm on social media, Angi for Angi for FORTX. So please reach out. My door, like I said, my door is always open. I'm open to having conversations, preferably not negative comments. I get enough of those already. Exactly. I would love to hear from you, and I would certainly appreciate your vote and appreciate your support. And I do invite you to look at both candidates. I don't like speaking negatively, but my opponent doesn't show up. He didn't show up to any of the media interviews. He doesn't show up to forums. And I think if as a candidate you can't show up, I'm not sure we can expect you to show up as a legislator. And I will be full-time. My door will be open to all as it is now. So please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Awesome. And thank you so much for inviting me today. I really appreciate the opportunity.
And just a reminder to everybody, you know, the part of the podcast is I do invite every single person that's on the ballot on that race. So, you know, we do invite everybody, whether they reach out back or not, that's up to them. But I believe it's important for always inviting every single person because you have to have that opportunity. I just think it's really important. But again, if people show up or not, that's up to them, you know. So, but I just want to make that clear that everybody in any races that I do cover, they are all called and notified. So, but other than that, well, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Early voting's right now. Do you know what time the polls close?
I think they usually close at 7. It could be later during early voting. I'm not sure. If you go to my website, I believe I have the information there. But please vote early. Please take a friend, take a family member, because sometimes all it takes is to be asked to get more people to vote. And the more people that vote, the better. And
I believe you could still vote at any location.
Yes, any location throughout the county during early voting.
Yeah. Not like I know it was last year or special election for 118. It was like on election day, you can only vote at 3 places or some crazy thing like that.
Yeah.
So just be careful with those. But as of right now, yeah, you can vote at any location. So, well, thank you, Angie. I appreciate you for coming on.
Of course.
Thank you for watching, and just stay tuned for. Probably won't do any more for this election, but for next election coming up for city council, again, that's coming back around. So stay tuned for those. And then we'll probably do some more interviews like we did with Rita and Coleto earlier. So we'll see what's going to happen with those. So, but thank you, Angie. I appreciate it. And just stay tuned with voting. Any votings, I'll post anything that we have that's going on for voting information. Things like that as well. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Bye.